Welcome to Human Potential at Work, the show where we explore social impact, inclusion, and empowerment of everyone, including persons with disabilities. Your host is Debra, CEO of Rue Global Impact and co-founder and chairwoman of Billion Strong, an identity and empowerment organization designed to bring billions of voices of persons with disabilities together. To join the global community and to donate to the cause, visit billion-strong.org. That's billion-strong.org. And now, on to the episode.
Hello, everyone. My name is Debra Rue, and I'm the CEO of Rue Global Impact and the Vice Chair of Billion Strong. I'm also very proud to be partners with Ztudium, and you're going to learn about some really cool projects. I always like to invite people on the show that I really respect, and Hilton Supra is one of those people I adore this man. I just think he's amazing. So I'm looking forward to introducing y'all to him as well. So Hilton Supra is the vice chair of Ztudium. And within Ztudium, they have multiple organizations, but he's very engaged with Cities ABC, Open Business Council, and Fashion ABC. And I know that we are very proud to be part of Open Business Council, and we love what they're doing because, of course, we believe, as does Hilton and his partner, Dennis Guardia, that we're all stronger together. So let me first start this off by remembering to do a visual explanation for those of you that are maybe on a podcast or you can't see me. So I have gray hair with a lot of purple in it, and I have on some gray glasses with a lovely little chain to make sure that I know where my glasses are, because that's who I am now. I'm the one always looking for my glasses, and they're usually on the top of my head. And I'm a white woman, and I'm wearing black and blue today, and very excited that Hilton has joined the show. So Hilton, will you tell the audience a little bit about who you are and maybe give a visual description as well?
Brilliant. Hello, everybody. My name's Hilton Supra. I'm the vice chairman of Ztudium Group. I'm sitting here actually in Lisbon. I moved to Lisbon about 14 months ago,
Wow.
where I used to previously work in Gibraltar, and you'll hear a little bit more about why. And of course, the city of London in England, where I lived for many years. To describe myself, I'm sitting here in the Metaverse, or the nascent Metaverse. I'm sitting upstairs in my mezzanine loft, so you can see the vaulted ceiling. So you can hear the echo of the vaulted ceiling. I was born in Africa, but a white African, and I've got short hair, recently cut, blue-gray eyes, a tan because I spent a little bit of the time down in the nice part of Europe, the southern part. I'm wearing a blue jacket, actually recycled suit jacket. And I don't have much time to wear suits anymore. And it's a blue and white stripy shirt. And this is me, Hilton.
And he's pretty amazing. He's pretty amazing. And I really like working with leaders that want to make the world a better place for everybody. And that is Hilton. That is Hilton. And as he mentioned, he was born in South Africa, but he's lived all over the world. And I know you have family in New Zealand. Your mom is in New Zealand, right? So
Yes, indeed. My mother lives in New Zealand along with my sister and my two nieces.
yeah. So you have family all over the world. So tell us about your background, because your background is confusing to me in a way, because what you did and what you're doing now are very different. But at the same time, what a powerful background you have to come in and make the world a better place. So tell us more about who Hilton is.
Thank you. I mean, who's Hilton? Obviously, as I mentioned, I was born in Africa and, of course, traveled extensively in Africa and consider myself an African. My family were involved particularly my grandmother, involved in the political environment for many years and having good liberal values with a small L, of course. I found that we were very anti-apartheid and very anti what was going on there. And we're very sensitive to the injustices and things like that. So I've carried that through as a banner throughout my life. And hopefully my career has really reflected what I've done. And so when we were politely asked to leave the country, my father was, we ended up in the UK, living in England. And then I eventually did my education at school. And then I went and did an engineering and building and management at then was Oxford Polytechnic, which now is Oxford Brookes, and then I became a financial engineer in the City of London, and loved technology. I mean, I remember the early days of technology, where literally I saw a whole room which was able to do what we do today on a spreadsheet or on mobile phones and powerful. And I started a program, very nascent. I'm a terrible programmer, to be honest with you. I'm terrible. I don't have the patience. But I realized the power of technology, and I used technology all through my career, particularly in the financial markets and helping the decision-making process, etc. But always in the back of my mind, you enter the City of London, you enter the financial and capital markets and asset management, you realize who you're making the money for. And at the end of the day, I was very aware that you're making money for other people, and most of the people are wanting to make money to sustain their longevity in terms of financial comfort when they retire. So I ended up working in an asset management firm where most of our clients were big pension funds. And I never forgot at the end of the day that there was somebody paying their £5, £10, £100, £200 into that pot. And I had a fiduciary duty to make sure that they were looked after. And I'm pleased to say I had a very successful career doing that, empowering people at the end of the day with finances. But one of the things that I became very aware of was that there was the growth in terms of ESG. Looking at the environment, looking at social issues and governance issues, and being very important. There's three important things in the way that you manage your fiduciary responsibilities as you navigate through the financial markets. And most of my clients tended to be sovereign wealth funds, or to be large pension funds, and some of them were in Africa, which was very interesting. So I realized at the end of the day that we had to do good. And I knew, because it's very quantitative, I always looked at the downside risk and minimized the downside risk and had strategies that had a downside risk component to it. And therefore, I like the crisis of 2008, 2009.
Yes, I remember that.
I was actually running funds of hedge funds. That was a fascinating experience because we didn't know the crisis was coming. We knew there was something coming, but we didn't know the extent of it. And we had structured our portfolios, and our quantitative risk models had positioned us in a way that when the crisis did hit, we didn't lose any money. We actually did the job that we were supposed to do.
Wow. We didn't do that, though, in the States. Oh, sorry. Okay.
I mean, but a lot of people, because they were very directional. We were, obviously, when you're working in a hedge fund environment, you're balancing off the downside risk versus the opportunity on the other side. But the crazy thing was, because we did such a good job, we were full of cash. Or we were able to, we were still able to liquidate if we were out.
Wow.
And we became an ATM machine because everybody was hemorrhaging cash all over the place. And so I said, okay, this is interesting that you have to redeem, and the clients went away, and etc. And then I said, what do I do next? I did a small spell in credit markets, but then I got involved in startups and building companies. It was very important that as the growth in DLT and blockchain and things like that happened, I suddenly saw a technology that was very empowering. And that was the beginning of what I am doing today. And that's like a bit of a big route that I've described of where I've come to. But using the decentralized nature of technology today and the ability to empower people has really, really excited me. And also the technology is making more and more people have access to things they couldn't have access to before. The people their superpower doesn't allow them to see, or doesn't allow them to hear, or doesn't allow them to be economically engaged.
Right.
Or access to education, or access to clean water. There are solutions out there that can be enabled using technology. And that's what really excites me today.
And I do want to, as part of this conversation, talk a little bit about cryptocurrency, because once again, you're a financial expert, and it's fascinating. I hear all the time from my friends that are around my age, how much money do I have no idea. People are so confused about it, but I also want to comment on there is a lot of efforts out there, but sometimes the efforts that could have the biggest impact, they're the ones that are ignored and not funded. And that's one reason why I'm so glad that you are in these conversations now, because we also were trying to make sure people with disabilities were included. But it always felt like it was an afterthought. It was we'll get to y'all in a little while. So
Mhm.
one thing that I really love about the work that you're doing at Ztudium and with these efforts is that you are not being lazy about it, because I hear it all the time. Oh, we're going to do this and we're all about the SDGs. Okay, are you accessible? Well, no, it's too hard and it's too much trouble. We don't have the money. And so, one thing that really drew me to your work and Dennis's work also is that you're actually brave enough to want to do it in an impactful way, which you already did with your career with finance. You told us why this matters to you, but I just think this is so important that people like you be at the very center of these conversations, because it feels to me like you have data that could really truly help us move forward. So let's talk a little bit about Ztudium. It's spelled differently. I know Americans, we always get speaking for myself, I always get confused with the words Smith, good.
Yeah,
Gone.
it's studium. It's just it's go back to the old Greek word to study, studium.
Oh, you're right. Thank
Just
you.
just
Thank you.
drop
And you just forget that Z there.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
just
Thank
place
you.
the studium.
But what is Ztudium?
Studium was a company that was started by Dennis Guarda, and I had the pleasure of meeting him close to 5 years ago. Seems like yesterday.
Oh,
We had a meeting of the minds in terms of what we want to do to create impact in the world. And he's a thought leader, and he is, a very, very, very interesting man.
I
And
agree.
had created significant amounts of technologies, many technologies. And I sat down with him, and over time, we were obviously trying to raise capital for the various platforms that we were wanting to build, but they're all sitting in one company. And coming from the investment management industry, I was very aware that you have to make things simple. The narrative has to be very clear. And there was like we'd go into a meeting and we'd basically rock up with the kitchen sink of all our IP and all our technologies. And people go, what are we investing in? So eventually decided that we would restructure the company and spin out all the different IPs and technologies into different companies, and then capital raise for those companies directly. And there would be a much simpler way of doing things, but all coming under the Ztudium umbrella. But also getting a lot of operational leverage from shared technologies of fourth industrial revolution, which include blockchain, AI, machine learning, etc. Very important developments in technology. But remember, these are just technologies, they're not buzzwords. Technology is technology, it's an enabler, but it's what you do with it which is most important. And what is the biggest problem today? It's that whole idea of truth and trust.
Right.
If I'm a farmer in Africa and I'm selling my grain or my mealies or corn, and I want to sell it to a producer of XYZ product in Philadelphia or down in one of the states which produces food. First of all, they don't know about each other.
Right.
Number one. The supply chain is very expensive. You want to actually bring the producer directly in to the consumer. You want to narrow that supply chain gap as much as you can, because there's high friction costs, high impact on financing, high impact on pricing, particularly in the commodities market, and also high impact on the environment, because the logistics of going from A to Z rather than go from A to B, much easier. It's a great ambition. But at the end of the day, you want to have that truth and trust that I'm a farmer in Africa and I have a mutable identity, that just because I have that identity, everybody will trust me.
Right.
That's the most important thing. So technology is an enabler to do that. Okay. This is what we're talking about today. So the first thing we did with our platforms, whether it be a city platform for cities, focusing on the stakeholders in the city, which is the governance, okay, the obviously like the local mayor's offices or whatever structure that's available there in terms of the governance of that. Then you've got the people, the citizens, and then the businesses.
Right.
And of course, you want to say, okay, how does that environment knit together for the benefit of those stakeholders in a city? Of course, you mentioned about United Nations Sustainable Goals. You talk about green, you talk about safety, you're talking about crime, you're talking about all these things.
Right.
That information's out there. How do we get that, extract that information out into a meaningful, digestible way that has utility for all the stakeholders?
Right.
And this is what Cities ABC does.
Right.
Because we want to be able to say, the thing is, people can build these fantastic databases, okay? And in fact, the cost of running those databases is so exorbitant that the utility, the impact of on the stakeholder is very expensive to achieve because of the way that the data is managed. But using modern techniques and technology in terms of artificial intelligence, the way that you use your data analytics and machine learning, you can actually extract from a lot of data utility and usefulness, okay? I'll give you an example. Data sits in silos. It's getting access to the data. But that's old data. The most important data is the data that is 1 hour old, 2 hours old. A traffic jam on the motorway. You're really getting it in your Google app when you're using Google or any map or navigation tool. So that's high utility, very important. So finding a way to access what people are doing, what they're thinking, what they're saying, and what they're doing. That is very important utility to the stakeholders. What we do really is we start looking at social media. Obviously, it's on. And at the end of the day, the one other thing I want to mention actually is very important, is that we don't want to make people the commodity of the data. Okay.
Good point.
At the moment. Okay. We want them to be able to be rewarded, okay, through the utility and through some other reward systems for actually giving up that anonymous data. And they really do that through social media. So pulling social media and all different interactions from data out there, which is current, you then have to extract from that very important sentiments and understand what society is going on, what the environment is like. And then once you've extracted that information, you create great utility, and out of great utility, you can actually make policy and understand what needs to be done in terms of achieving United Nations Sustainable Goals.
Right.
Because through a clever way of using technology, you can actually achieve that. So that's like in the cities platform. But the key thing is using the technology in the right way and not abusing people in terms of their data.
Using
And of course-
technology for good.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
To help. And I know you and I have had this conversation, but I thought it was interesting. I was talking to a group at the UN, and they were saying it's interesting what people ask for when they're in an emergency situation. Refugees, there's been an earthquake, there's war.
Mhm.
Before, they would ask for clean drinking water, clothes, shelter, food. Now, the number one thing they ask for is reliable Wi-Fi. Because if I can get reliable Wi-Fi, I can try to get myself out of this trouble instead of waiting for somebody to come and rescue me, which probably ain't going to happen.
Mhm.
So I just wanted to, it's
Yeah,
just,
but this is, you talk about disasters and things like that. It's much cheaper, okay, to use technology, and it's a simple thing, okay. You can do a scan of a city from using satellites, okay, and you can, using with technology, determine which districts down to which house will be damaged the most
wow,
in a cyclone or a flood or anything like that. Then what you do is, once you've highlighted all those areas that have high risk, you go and educate the people. So the policy is to now educate the people that if the cyclone comes, make sure you do this, or you go there, or you raise, or you pull your stuff at least a meter above the ground, because you're going to have a meter of water coming into your house, or whatever. Okay, you reduce the impact cost to the city significantly just by mapping
wow.
out the city. and confirm. And then also then you can understand, then of course, if you're using recent data, and then you mentioned about access to Wi-Fi or access to mobile phones, is in those extreme environments when they're happening, the way that you gather the data, you can actually see live what's actually going on in terms of, a lot of people screaming about water everywhere. There's loads of ways with the way that you can use natural language and technology, and getting that sentiment is really important. So tie the two things. You got your policy based on real data, run it scenarios, and you can do preventative work. That's
And we
really
don't and we don't do that now. And also I see multiple like smart city initiatives,
yeah.
but just and I feel like a broken record. I feel like such a nag, but it's like they don't include the most disenfranchised people in the world. So why we're breaking everything apart and blowing everything up in the world, why don't we build back inclusively? And why don't we, people aren't broken, people just are not given the same opportunities. They're not given the same education. And why in the world, y'all could make so much more money if you just ignored us annoying disenfranchised people. Sorry, I don't
But
mean
a
that.
lot of people are disenfranchised. I think
You're right.
I'd say it's a significant amount of how many disabled people are there
Yeah,
in the world.
it's ridiculous.
You know,
1.2 to 1.7 billion. And we think those numbers are low because you know what? If you're a human being, you have abilities, you have let's stop deciding you're not good because you're the wrong color skin, you love the wrong person, you whatever. We actually discriminate against each other with African American women because of their hairstyles. They get discriminated against because of their hair. So yeah, it's amazing how much we do that as humans, but I really love, and I just love that you and Dennis did not want to do that. And you were examples of leaders that know how to do this and they understand all the moving parts, but you were not willing to leave people out. And that's, I feel very grateful and blessed to be working with y'all. I really do. And it's
right.
really, yeah, the people you're bringing on and you're working with, it's
But
really,
the thing is, you touched upon something very interesting about discrimination because of the way that people look based on their ethnic. The biggest, I'm not going to put it out there, which I think is very controversial. The biggest risk to society today is the people that design the algorithms.
oh, I so agree with that.
So think of
What could be wrong with,
we know who they are.
yeah.
They're normally West Coast American, white, Anglo-Saxon males.
And we're
Okay,
technologists. Yep. Yeah. So,
they're technologists. They write the algorithm.
right.
Okay, and maintain the algorithm, and it completely excludes 90% of the population.
Mhm. Yes. Right.
How can that be? How can that be a sane way of moving forward in an inclusive society? It's impossible.
It's impossible.
Purely by the way that you've designed the system. Even West Coast startups who say, "Oh, I've built this app and it's going to help the unbanked and blah blah blah," and think that they can then deploy it in Mauritania or deploy it in Bangladesh.
Yeah.
Without understanding what is the cultural aspects, how people actually as a culture do business,
Right.
who does the business, and a lot of those, particularly the things like paying school fees and things like that, it's normally the woman.
Right. Right.
And who controls the finances, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of things that are not thought about from a cultural perspective when all these applications are built.
Right.
So, I mean, this is why it's taken us quite a long time to get where we are today, because we want to do it.
I know, but
We know
it's
what
hard
makes
to
you
do it
hard.
right though, Hilton.
Yeah.
It's hard. It takes more money. All of the expertise isn't there. It's harder, but thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you for being willing to do it the right way, even though it's the hard way, because if
Yeah.
we're not willing to do that, Hilton,
Yeah.
we don't have a chance. Because this is a real opportunity.
Yeah.
So, and I know in some ways you've already mentioned the metaverse, but as I look at the metaverse and I look at the leaders that say they're going to build the metaverse, it scares me to death.
Yes.
And I won't be mean. I'll know who, but I'm sorry. I just don't trust And another thing, I'm just going to complain about one more thing, that I'm going to stop. But another thing I don't understand is I think it's great when, say, somebody like Jeff Bezos makes cajillion dollars, but I don't understand. He's not the only one that did the work. So what about all those other people? Why do we need? Yeah, that is so unbalanced. Because one thing that I love about the work you're doing at Ztudium is that you are really walking the walk. I am shocked at the vendors. I know that 90% of our team are people with disabilities, but we're not the only. You also have other vendor, Bruno, who's the
Yep.
CEO of his own AI company. Wow, this man is brilliant. So I'm sorry, I'm bad about gushing, but I appreciate people that are making a difference. But speaking of the metaverse, you had mentioned a few of the things you're doing,
Yes.
but
Actually, so they talk about the metaverse, and this is where we try to make things simple. And at the moment, you and I are engaging in the nascent growth of what is in the metaverse. We're actually communicating through a digital medium, okay, and then we're going to be broadcasting that and putting that out for consumption within, and our voice gets recycled into electrons, and people consume it. Okay, that is effectively the metaverse.
right.
The next phase of the metaverse is it's from a 2-dimensional to a 3-dimensional space. More of what I call augmented reality. We're using technology to augment our relationship with the real world. This is where I think accessibility makes great sense.
I agree.
The tool of accessibility. If you look at the big, I don't want to mention their names, but we'll know who the
Right.
big metaverse
Kaboochionaires, yeah, whatever.
they want this to be a totally immersive, 100% put the goggles on experience.
Yeah.
Which is a very dystopian way of building the society.
Oh my gosh, it's
It could bring some major
wrong with that.
challenges.
Yeah,
Major challenges. What we want to do is, how do you empower people? How do you empower people with technology? Give them good utility, okay? We want to use the technology to enable people with accessibility issues to have access to the world,
yes.
even in the metaverse. How do you navigate around the metaverse when you've got goggles on and you're blind?
I know, and
How do we build that inclusivity, or people who it doesn't, but what we can do is we can do something different. We can make an augmented experience which helps somebody navigate in the real world using digital technology, but still have access to the Web3 environment. Because in the future, what's going to happen, you're going to have all these web stores, web malls, web pavilions, virtual pavilions, where you can go to a concert and engage at a concert in your own avatar and walk around and engage with the people around you in a virtual space. Okay, that is a unique experience. But how do, for somebody who's challenged, what with their superpower is brilliant in one direction, but challenged in another.
Right.
How do you deal with that?
Right.
So I think the augmented experience has two benefits. Number one, it gives everybody accessibility. The
right.
second thing, it bridges the gap between the real world and the digital world.
I agree.
That's the most important thing.
And I think also what's very interesting, and that's also why I'm thrilled that we're working with you on this, is that identity really comes into it. Because a lot of people know that my daughter, Sarah, has Down syndrome. And I remember a lot of my work is because of her. And she's
Yep.
said to me one time when she was like 16, she said, "Stop telling people I have Down syndrome. I'm normal." And I was like, "Oh, honey, you don't want to be that. You don't want to be normal. I don't want to be just old. I'm going to put some purple in my hair." Because it's like,
Yeah.
don't look at me and think I'm normal. I'm not. I think that's an advantage, but I do think we've got to get the identity right, because I hope that people will want to build their avatars based on the reality of who they are. So, for example, I know Bruno was saying, "I'm going to create an avatar for you, Deborah." And I thought, yay, how fun. But please make that avatar look like it's older. Only because what I don't want to, I know that there's role playing, but I just think of what I don't want us to accidentally do as we're building all these things is make it seem that Lamondre's physical real identity is less than his. So it's like they're big, these are big conversations.
But this is the beauty of the augmented metaverse, is that using technology, essentially an individual entering the metaverse should have their own identity,
Right.
proven identity, so everybody can trust them, number one.
Mhm. Yes.
Because only when you have your own identity can you be in charge of your data.
Oh, wow.
Okay?
Wow. Good
That's
point.
the most important thing. If people go in and creating multiple versions of themselves or multiple profiles, it's just noise. It has no utility to society. It actually is detrimental to society.
Right.
So the point is that individuals like Lemondre, individuals like Bruno, who
Talent.
are talented and wonderful people, but in the metaverse, they will still be in their wheelchair, but it'll be a really the avatar will have a
It could fly.
not from spinning wheels and things like that. I mean, I don't know, spinners on their things, however they want to design it. Their identity is very important, but they move around without limits,
Yes. Yes.
just like all of us. Okay.
And
But identity is very important,
yes.
and how they use their identity and engage. But then you have to not lose sight of reality, the real world and the meta world. But if you have that truth and trust in the metaverse, where the individual is known, and you can say, okay, I'm now walking around in the concert, and I actually can turn up the volume or turn down the volume. I can turn it up and say, okay, here's all my social profiles. If you want to engage with me, talk to me. And if I just want to go there and just be quiet in the corner and watch the concert, I can do that.
Oof, I love it. I love it.
Turn down my giving people access to who I am.
Right.
They will know I exist.
I know, and I love that. And I know that I promised to keep you on 30 minutes, and I lied because it's already been 34 minutes, but
No, we can carry on.
please come back on again too. But
Yes.
I still want to keep you a little bit longer, because one thing that I would like, I have a lot of audience members all over the world, so blessed
Mhm.
by my wonderful audience. And a lot of them are investors and corporations. And so, do you mind spending the last part of the time that we have together
Mhm.
talking about what do you need? What do you need? Do you need funders? Do you need partners? Do you need? So, we talk about ABC Fashion, ABC Cities, for example. What can our audience do to help you?
Yep. I think the most important thing is that to build a business, you can never do it on your own.
Right. I agree.
You have to build it with partners, and in order to get scale and growth. Okay. And I've seen so many presentations done by people doing startups. Okay. They go and they raise the money, they get great tech people together, they build some great tech. And then once they built the tech, they go, and we need to raise some more money because we need to go and get an audience. We need to get customers. Okay. It's the wrong way around. Let's start with engaging with the audience first. Number one, by engaging with the audience, you understand what the audience wants. You understand what the customer wants. So when you build the tech, you build it. Okay, that's the most important thing. But build a platform. Everything going forward is platforms. And the only way that platforms can grow and ecosystems can grow is by what are called willing participants as partners. And then what you do is you're creating mutual value. That's the only way you can go forward. It can't be a one-way street.
I agree. It's the only way.
So, this is my shout out. I'm looking for inspired leaders, who have inspiring businesses, who want to make change and make the difference, who want to come on the same journey as we are going through, okay, and want to make a difference in the world.
How about inspired investors? Is there such a thing as that?
But those inspired investors will be there. If they look at, if I sit down in front of an inspired investor, and I've got great partners,
So true.
with a great ethos, a great willingness to collectively change the world,
Yes.
okay, and really empower people, it's a 5-minute conversation.
Oh, so true. I agree, Hilton. And We are
Yeah.
just, I know I've known you for a few years and I just love working with you. I just love it. Dennis, sorry. Hey, Dennis.
That's okay.
Oh,
We like joined at the hip.
wow. I know. So sorry. Yeah. You're actually, Hilton, would you mind letting the audience know some of the websites? And we'll make sure we include all this so y'all don't have to remember
Mhm.
it. But tell the websites, how can people contact you? And you are actually running the Fashion ABC and Cities ABC, I believe, as their
Yeah.
CEO, if I'm correct, I believe.
Yeah, the title moves as we bring
Yeah.
partners in here.
Right. Yeah.
End of the day, I'm as I'm saying, what is it, chief something and bottle washer.
Yeah. 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 I understand that.
Yeah. No, but so Studium is the main group. Then we have Cities ABC, which is the platform that we have for cities. Then we've got openbusinesscouncil.org, which is the platform that we are launching for SMEs globally, so they can actually engage with each other in the truth and trusted way.
And everything's accessible, by the way. We're going to make sure all of this is accessible. Just saying. Yeah. Sorry.
Mhm.
Go ahead.
Absolutely. As one of the inspiring partners that we like working.
Thank you.
You and Richard and David and
Yeah,
Mondre.
yes. Yes.
And then we've got which is a very interesting one, which is the fashion industry supply chain. And that's trying to understand what impact the supply chain has on the environment,
Mhm.
on people, etc. So that when a consumer actually gets the product in their hands, they understand what their ESG, basically the ESG impact
Right.
has been for that particular product.
And I'm just going to make a quick comment about that because, for example, I really care personally about this beautiful planet that we're living on. I love our Mother Earth. And so I got a Prius, one of the first Priuses.
Yeah.
And it hurt my heart to learn about what was happening with the batteries and the people that were being abused in Africa. That I was like, oh no, I was trying to make a difference. And like the electric cars, I'm like, wait a minute. But at the same time, here in the States and things, I'm very empathetic of everything that's happening in the States and all over the world. But our gas prices are going up. But the reality is, we in the States have been paying such low amounts for gas for years. Everybody else has been paying the same amount for a liter to a gallon. It's so
Yes.
knowing, and another thing that always made my heart hurt is I think it's great that in the United States I can get things for nothing, $2 or something. But what I don't want to do is to be responsible for the people that are making 10 cents a day in a horrible condition. I don't want that. I now recycling everything but we do need to know this because if enough of us knew it, we would do the right thing. We would. I wouldn't buy from that brand. I wouldn't do that. But I don't know. We don't know. And I just wanted to say that part right there really excites me. And the supply chain, the global supply chain, the national supply chain. Yeah, we're in trouble with that. But anyway, I just wanted to tell you that.
But it's easier to, it's not an easy fix.
No, it is not. No,
Use of technology, you can do simple things. And I was having a conversation with one of the biggest distributors of one of the biggest brands. I won't mention who they are. It comes in a glass bottle and it's been around a long time and it's
it's got a lot of sugar in it, I bet. Okay, cool. Go.
so anyway. With technology today, okay, they can with logistics, etc., and the way that technology, they can actually, because you go out and deliver product, and on the way back, you're empty.
Okay.
What can you do with an empty?
Ooh, that would help. Wow.
And so if you can integrate that into what I call other supply chains that require transport on that particular route at that time of day, you are making lots of differences, like the drop of sand, the grains of sand.
That's right. Right.
You
That's
know,
what. Yeah.
It's just simple things.
Logical common sense.
Right. I mean, things we talk about the industrial revolutions. We talk about the fourth industrial revolution,
Right.
which is basically an extension of, from us tilling the ground in the first industrial revolution all the way through to us becoming very technology savvy and using technology, but it's an incredibly linear process. We throw this word out all the time for AI, blockchain, fintech, and Internet of Things, etc. We forget about people.
I know.
This is where Society 5 is, the fifth society is very important. It's put the person at the center, enabled by technology,
Yes,
rather than being part of that industrial process.
I agree.
Because the legacy of that industrial process is very costly on society and very costly on the environment.
Right, right.
So we need to change all that.
I agree. And we
baby
are
steps, but we can do that.
And
Absolutely.
we are going to. We are. And
Yes.
how can people find you? I know you're on LinkedIn and Twitter.
Absolutely. So I've been, this is a big lesson. It's very easy to find me. You just Google Hilton Supra, Hilton, Supra, Supra. My Twitter handle is the same. My Instagram's the same.
That's right. Good brain.
My LinkedIn is the same. It's the same across everywhere. I'm out there.
Yes.
Sometimes I'm vocal and sometimes I'm not. I should be a bit much more engaged, as I've been told by my social media team. But
That's hard. Yeah.
I'm 61.
You don't look it though, but we got this. So, well, thank you, Hilton. Thank you for being such an amazing leader. Thank you for your partner, Dennis. Thank you for the work you're doing at Ztudium. And it gives me hope to know that somebody is thinking about the human beings. And we're very proud to be doing that with you. But I wanted to make sure the audience also got introduced to the work you're doing, because I love how it has a lot of major benefits to society. Before you jump, will you give the Ztudium the URL for the audience, and then
Ztudium, it's very simple. It's Ztudium, which is Ztudium.com. And then we've got openbusinesscouncil.org. Then we've got citiesabc.com. And then we've got fashionabc.org. And to come shortly, to be launched in the next few days, freedomx.com.
That one is that's amazing. Yes, that will be amazing. Yes. And I will say for my American counterparts that Z is Z, but I just love, it's so cute how they say Z. Oh, I'm sorry.
Z. Like Zebedee.
Hilton, thank you. Thank you for being on the show. I hope you'll come back on, because you are the kind of leader that we need to move forward and make sure that we do it right, So
we just have to get on and do it step by step.
Yes, I agree.
And working, as I said, with partners and inspired people is the way to move forward.
I agree.
Very much indeed, Debra. I am honored to be on your show.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Hilton. And thank you to the audience. And please share this episode and get involved. So let's all make a difference together. So
we are nobodies unless we have an engagement with everybody.
Oh, gosh, that's very cool.
Everybody is thinking and wanting and doing is the only way in which we can actually do and build useful things to enable everybody to achieve what they want to achieve.
I agree, son. Thank you so much, Hilton, and thank you to the audience. I will talk to you next week. Bye, everyone.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Human Potential at Work. To learn more about Rue Global Impact, visit rueglobal.com. And to learn more about Billion Strong, an identity and empowerment organization designed to bring the billions of voices of persons with disabilities together, you can join the global community and donate at billion-strong.org. That's billion-strong.org.